Alright, what is up, y'all? So, just a little heads up, I am not gonna be voicing this video. Basically, I'm not gonna be narrating it. This is an experiment to see what you guys think. So, my friend Andrew is going to voice it because he is an amazing person. Go check him out on YouTube, on Twitch, everything, even TikTok. So, yeah. Now, take it away, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Superblade. Today we're going to try and beat Pokemon Fire Red with Spoink only. Spoink is a Psychic type Pokemon with a base stat total of 330. With weaknesses to Ghost, Dark, and Bug, the most troublesome opponents are likely going to be Agatha from the Elite Four with her Ghost types, and Sabrina because we're both going to be wielding Psychic type Pokemon. One thing we do have going for us is Spoink's ability Own Tempo, which means we cannot be confused in battle. Not having to worry about confusion for a whole run is pretty great. Let's go over the rules real quick. Superblade is only going to be using Spoink in battle, but using other Pokemon for HMs outside of battle is allowed. We're not allowed to switch if we have other Pokemon in the party though. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started. So right away I decided to pick Charmander as my starter, since my rival will have a Squirtle and Blastoise has very good defense and special defense, and later learns the move Bite. Afterwards, I catch my starter Spoink after about 5 Pokeballs and nickname it Whizpig. After that we make it through Viridian Forest where we head to Pewter City to take on Brock. Brock's first Pokemon is a Geodude, and we decide to use Psybeam, which ended up one-shotting the Geodude, and his next Pokemon is Onix. After one Psybeam, Onix barely lives on yellow health, Brock 2 misses, and a second Psybeam took down the Onix, earning us the first badge, aka the Boulder Badge. After that, we make our way to Mount Moon, and then we get to Cerulean City where we take on Grusha. He sends out Pidgeotto, who uses Quick Attack, doing about 12 damage to us. We go for Psybeam, Pidgeotto lives on yellow HP, and a second Psybeam takes down the Pidgeotto. Grusha sends out Rattata next, who falls to a single Psybeam, and the next Pokemon he sends out is Squirtle. We hit Squirtle with Psybeam, and it lives on green HP. Squirtle uses Tackle for about 6 damage, and we keep up with the Psybeam barrage until Squirtle faints, but it does manage to do 7 more damage with the use of Tackle. Grusha sends out Abra last, who is also a Psychic type, but it only knows Teleport, so it's pretty much harmless. After a Psybeam and another 2 Psybeams, since it lived on 1 HP, we have beaten Grusha in Cerulean City. The next thing we can do is head on up through Nugget Bridge to get the SS Ann ticket. Then we head to the Pokemart to pick up some Super Potions to take on Misty. Her first Pokemon is a Staryu, but Staryu is only a Water-type Pokemon, so it dies to one single Psybeam because, as I mentioned, it's only a Water type, and it does not resist our Psybeam. Misty sends out Starmie next, and he uses Water Pulse, which actually does quite a bit of damage to us. We end up using Confuse Ray, and luckily it hits itself in Confusion, where we just have to hit it with Psybeam a bunch of times. But thankfully, it happens a third time where Starmie hits itself in Confusion, and it earns us the Cascade Badge. The next thing we can do is head on over to Vermilion City and battle Grusha aboard the SS Ann. He sends out Pidgeotto, we use a Psybeam, and Pidgeotto barely lives on red health and hits us with a Sand Attack. Pidgeotto then heals, and 2 Psybeams knocks it out. Grusha then sends out Wartortle, and we hit it with a crit Psybeam for a one-hit knockout. Grusha's next Pokemon is Eradicate. We use Psybeam, and it lives on red health, and uses Tail Whip next, but a second Psybeam takes down the Eradicate. Grusha then sends out Kadabra, we use Psybeam, and it does about half damage, but then Kadabra uses Disable, and we use Confuse Ray until he uses Kinesis. And then we just hit it with the Psywave, which knocks out the Kadabra and beats Grusha for a third time. After he leaves the SS Ann, we can head up to the captain's quarters and give him a little back rub for the HM01 of Cut. We can catch a Meowth, nickname it Hammy, and teach Cut to it. Next we can take on Lieutenant Surge. He sends out Voltorb, uses Sonic Boom, and we hit it with 1 Psybeam for the knockout. The next Pokemon he sends out is Pikachu. 1 Psybeam is all it takes to knock out the Pikachu. And last Pokemon is Raichu, who uses Thunder Wave. We use a Psybeam doing about half damage, then Raichu starts using Double Team. We did hit it with another Psybeam, and it lives on about 1 HP. Then Lieutenant Surge uses a Super Potion. We use another Psybeam, getting it to about yellow health, and we get hit with a Shockwave for about 18 HP worth of damage. We use another Psybeam, knocking the Raichu out, and it earns us the Thunder Badge. The cool thing is we can teach Wizpig Shockwave, which is the TM we receive for beating Lieutenant Surge. We can also grab the HM for Flash after going through Diglett's Cave, and we can teach that to Hammy as well. We start heading over to Rock Tunnel, and luckily around this area, Wizpig learns Psychic, which is a really powerful move. Then we make it to Celadon City, grab the coin case, and get some coins. We go ahead and buy the moves Iron Tail and Shadow Ball to teach them to Wizpig. Then we can go to the Rocket Hideout, grab the Lift Key, and then take on Giovanni for the Sylph Scope. Giovanni's first Pokemon is Onix. We use an Iron Tail, which does about half damage to Onix, but it lowers its defense in the process. Onix goes for Bind, squeezing Wizpig, but a Psychic finishes it off. Giovanni's next Pokemon is Kangaskhan, and Psychic's not even doing half damage here, and it hits us for 39 damage with a single Mega Punch. We use an Iron Tail, but it doesn't do all that much, and then Kangaskhan opts to go for Tail Whip. That lowers our defense, but Psychic takes down Kangaskhan, thankfully. Giovanni's last Pokemon is Rhyhorn. We use Iron Tail, doing about half damage, then we get hit with a 24 damage Stomp. Using Psychic, however, beats the Rhyhorn, and we beat Giovanni. Now we take on Erica. Now, because we have Psychic, I don't anticipate that this battle will be very difficult, and it turns out I was right. She sends out Victory Bell, we one-shot with Psychic. Tangela is next, we one-shot with Psychic. And hey, what do you know, Vileplume's our last Pokemon, and we also one-shot it with Psychic, earning us the Rainbow Badge. The next thing we can do is head on over to Pokemon Tower, where we've got Grusha waiting for us for another rival battle. First Pokemon he sends out is Pidgeotto, and we can use Shockwave to take it out in one shot. Then he sends out Wartortle, and again we have Shockwave, and it barely lives the Shockwave, but it does bite, doing about 15 damage, but Psychic takes down the Wartortle. Grusha's next Pokemon is Growlithe, and we use Psychic to one-shot it. Grusha has Exeggutor next. We use a Shadow Ball, which does about half damage, and luckily it misses with Hypnosis and then falls to the next Shadow Ball. Grusha's got Kadabra next, who dies to a single Shadow Ball, which beats our rival. Next thing we can do after that is grab HM Fly, then teach it to a random Pidgey. We make it all the way to Fuchsia City, and it's time to take on Koga. He sends out Coughing, and we use a Psychic to one-shot it. The next Pokemon is Muck, and so much happens here. We use a Psychic, but Muck lives on yellow health and starts using Minimize. Koga then uses a Hyper Potion, and we use a Psychic, getting it to red health, and we attempt a Shadow Ball, which does so little to us, while Muck hits us with 41 damage of Sludge and poisons us. We try to heal, but Muck uses Sludge, and we end up dying to Poison. Let's try that again, shall we? We get to Muck, and we use a Psychic. It lives on red health once again, and uses Minimize after healing. We use a Psychic, getting a crit, and then taking down the Muck. Koga's next Pokemon is the second Coughing, which we one-shot to Psychic. Koga's last Pokemon is a Weezing, and we one-shot it with Psychic, earning us the Soul Badge. We make it to Safari Zone so we can grab HM3 Surf and also get the Gold Teeth. We get to Celadon City, give the guard some tea, and then make it to Saffron City, where we can take on Grusha once again. His first Pokemon is Pidgeot. We use a Shockwave, but Pidgeot lives on yellow health and uses Wing Attack. But the follow-up Psychic takes down the Pidgeot. Grusha's next Pokemon is Blastoise. We use a Shockwave, doing less than half. Blastoise gets a critical hit Bite, doing about 77 HP in damage. We heal, then Blastoise uses Bite for about 36 damage. We use a Psychic, getting it to red health. Another Bite does another 36 HP worth of damage, and luckily a second Psychic takes it down. Grusha then sends Growlithe out, who dies to one Psychic with a critical hit. Grusha's next Pokemon is Exeggcute. We use Shadow Ball, and it lives on green health. He stuns us with Stun Spore, and hits us with 2 Confusions. We use another Shadow Ball, getting Exeggcute to low health, and Exeggcute uses Confusion, but the last Shadow Ball takes it down. Grusha then sends out Alakazam, and it starts using Calm Mind. We're doing about half damage with Shadow Ball. Alakazam uses Future Sight, and then another Shadow Ball takes it down, beating Grusha once again. Next, we can take on Giovanni, who isn't really much of an issue. I mean, he sends out a Nidorino, who gets one shot with Psychic. Then Giovanni sends out Nidoqueen. We use a Psychic, and it lives on yellow health, and it does about 12 damage with Double Kick. We hit with a critical hit Psychic on Nidoqueen to take it down. Giovanni then sends out Kangaskhan. We use a Psychic doing about half damage while lowering its special defense, and we use a second Psychic to take down the Kangaskhan. Giovanni then sends out Rhyhorn. We miss an Iron Tail, and Rhyhorn's doing 37 damage with Stomp. When we get Iron Tail to connect, it does about less than half damage, unfortunately. Rhyhorn uses Rock Blast 3 times, which leaves us with 18 HP. We heal, Rhyhorn hits with another 3 times with Rock Blast, and we use Psychic to beat Giovanni. While we're in town, having just saved Sylph Company from a crime syndicate, we can take on Sabrina. She sends out Kadabra, who gets taken down with 1 Shadow Ball. Next Pokemon is Venomoth, who falls to 1 Psychic, and I always found that funny because it's a Bug and Poison type in a Psychic gym, but I digress. Sabrina's next Pokemon is Mr. Mime. We use a Shadow Ball, getting Mr. Mime to red health, and then it goes for Barrier, raising its defense. Sabrina heals, and we use Shadow Ball, and now it does less than half because of that barrier. We use a second Shadow Ball, getting Mr. Mime to red health, but then it uses Baton Pass, switching into Alakazam. Alakazam uses Calm Mind, and we use Shadow Ball, which does less than half damage. Alakazam hits us with Psychic, doing about 36 HP worth of damage. We use a Shadow Ball, getting it to low yellow health. Then Alakazam does another Psychic, but another Shadow Ball takes down the Alakazam. Sabrina's last Pokemon is now Mr. Mime. It goes for Psybeam, doing about 12 damage. We use a Shadow Ball, which takes down the Mr. Mime and earns us the Marsh Badge. With that, we can head to Cinnabar Island, get the key inside the mansion, and now we can take on Blaine. He sends out Growlithe. We use a Psychic, defeating the Growlithe in 1 shot. Blaine then sends out Arcanine. We use a Psychic that does about half damage. Then Arcanine uses Fire Blast, which does about 71 HP worth of damage. We use another Psychic, but it lives on about 1 HP and beats us with a critical hit Fire Blast. Okay, well, we try again and use a Psychic, doing about half damage to Arcanine, but we eat a Fire Blast for 63 damage. We use a second Psychic, which takes down the Arcanine. Blaine sends out Ponyta, who dies to 1 Psychic, and his last Pokemon is Rapidash. We use a Psychic, getting it to low yellow HP. Rapidash then uses Fire Blast for 45 damage, and we can take it down with another Psychic, beating the Rapidash and earning us the Volcano Badge. Now we can head on over to the Sevi Islands, take on Hypno, which we use a Shadow Ball. Hypno uses Poison Gas, and the second Shadow Ball finishes it off. Now that we're back at Viridian City, we can take on Giovanni for the final badge. He sends out Rhyhorn. We use a Psychic to one-shot it with a critical hit. Giovanni then sends out Dugtrio, who uses Earthquake, but it's only doing about 40 damage. Dugtrio doesn't have very high attack. We use a Psychic to one-shot it. Giovanni sends out Nidoqueen, who is taken down to 1 Psychic. Nidoking, and then he is also eliminated by 1 Psychic. And the second Rhyhorn also is one-shot by 1 Psychic, earning us the final badge, also known as the Earth Badge. Now we can take on Grusha once again. He sends out Pidgeot, we go for Psychic, getting it to about low yellow HP. He uses Wing Attack, and we can knock it out with a follow-up Shockwave. Grusha then sends out Blastoise. We use a Psychic, still being at green health, and Blastoise uses Bite for about 45 HP worth of damage. We then use Shockwave, getting it to low yellow HP, and then Blastoise uses Bite for 49 damage. Blastoise then outspeeds with Bite, somehow making us lose. We try again using Psychic on Blastoise, doing less than half, but we lower its special defense, which is good. Blastoise then uses Bite for 42 damage. We follow up with Psychic. Blastoise follows up with another Bite, and after healing, Blastoise uses Water Gun, interesting choice, but we can finally knock it out with a follow-up Psychic. Grusha then sends out Rhyhorn. Rhyhorn has bad special defense, and it's one shot to a Psychic, and so is Growlithe apparently, because he also gets knocked out by 1 Psychic. The next Pokemon he sends out is Exeggutor. We start using Shadow Ball for about less than half damage, and we get paralyzed once again. But as we keep nailing it with Shadow Balls, we're getting hit with Solar Beam, which actually doesn't do as much as I expected. And after a succession of Shadow Balls, we knock out the Exeggutor. Unfortunately, when he sends out Alakazam, we are able to hit it with Shadow Ball, but then Alakazam disables Shadow Ball, and it keeps hitting us with Psychic, and now we're just trying to use Iron Tail, which has the propensity to miss. Once we can use Shadow Ball again, we knock out the Alakazam and beat Grusha for the second to last time. Now it's time to head to Victory Road, and we're here at the Pokemon League, so wish us luck. First, we have the Ice-type trainer Lorelei. She sends out Dugong, and with Psychic, we're doing less than half damage, but we did lower its special defense. Dugong goes for Safeguard, oddly enough, and we take it down with Shockwave. Lorelei then sends out Lapras. We use a Shockwave doing less than half. Lapras tries to go for Confuse Ray, but we have own tempo, so that's not going to work. Anyway, going for Psychic, getting Lapras down to yellow HP, lowering its special defense. It's doing Surf, heals with its Citrus Berry, and it lives on a Psychic. Lapras does about 44 damage with Ice Beam. Lapras heals, and after 2 more Psychics, we finally take down her worst Pokemon. Cloyster is up next. We use a Psychic, and it lives on about 10 HP. Uses Hail, and then Shockwave finishes it off. Lorelei then sends out Slowbro, who uses Surf and does quite a bit of damage with a critical hit. We then use Shockwave to get it to low yellow HP. Slowbro hits us with another Surf, but we do end up knocking it out with the follow-up Shockwave. Lorelei then sends out Jinx, who uses Ice Punch. We miss with Iron Tail. Jinx uses Lovely Kiss and Attract, and somehow we hit with Iron Tail, getting Jinx to low yellow HP. Then a follow-up Shadow Ball takes it down. With Lorelei out of the way, we've got Pokemon Trainer Bruno up next, who usually uses Fighting-type Pokemon and a couple Onixes. He sends out Onix, who dies to 1 Psychic, then sends out Hitmonchan, which we use Psychic, but it does manage to survive. Hitmonchan uses Rock Tomb, which does lower our speed. It heals, and we follow it up with Psychic to knock it out. Bruno then sends out Hitmonlee, who uses a whopping Mega Kick, and once again lives on 1 HP to a Psychic. What the heck? Hitmonlee misses with Mega Kick and then dies to a follow-up Psychic. Bruno sends out the other Onix, who ends up hitting us with Earthquake, living on 3 HP somehow, and we beat the Onix with a follow-up Psychic. Then Bruno sends out Machamp. Machamp uses Cross Chop. We hit with the Psychic, getting it to red health, but it puts it in range of the Citrus Berry and out of full restore range, which is great. We survive a Cross Chop at 17 HP and finally beat Machamp with Psychic. Now we have Agatha, who has Ghost Pokemon and could be quite the challenge here. Gengar is the first Pokemon who starts using Double Team, but we ended up one-shotting it with Psychic, which is a great start. Next she sends out Golbat, who uses Air Cutter, doing about 41 damage, and then it gets knocked out to Psychic. Arbok is her next Pokemon, who also gets one-shot to Psychic. She sends out her second Gengar, who uses Hypnosis, but fails to use Nightmare and misses Hypnosis and falls to Psychic. Her last Pokemon is Haunter, and it follows the fate of her other Ghost Pokemon, dies to 1 Psychic. Finally, the last Elite Four member, Lance. He sends out Gyarados, and we use Shockwave, getting it to low yellow HP. Gyarados uses Bite, which does a good chunk of damage. Lance heals it up, and then it dies to 2 Shockwaves. Lance sends out Aerodactyl next, who uses Ancient Power, and luckily doesn't get the Omni Boost. We miss with Iron Tail, and it knocks us out with Hyper Beam. Once we try again and get back to the Aerodactyl, it hits us with Ancient Power, and Psychic is doing less than half damage. Aerodactyl uses Hyper Beam, doing about 93 damage, and after another Hyper Beam that did about 147, we take down Aerodactyl with Psychic. Here's the problem, though. We can't really do anything to this Dragonite. We try again with the Psychic, doing less than half. Dragonite uses Safeguard, we hit with another Psychic, getting it to red health. And then we live a Hyper Beam at 8 HP, and Citrus Berry heals Dragonite just enough to where Lance doesn't use a full restore. The last Psychic beats Dragonite. Now Lance sends out Dragonair, we use a Psychic, getting it to red health, and a second one knocks it out. For the second Dragonair, we use a Psychic, once again getting this one to red health. Dragonair uses Thunder Wave and Safeguard, but we finish it off with a Psychic, and now it's time to take on the champion. Grusha's first Pokemon is Pidgeot. We use a Psychic, getting Pidgeot to low yellow HP. Pidgeot goes for Aerial Ace, doing 85 damage with a critical hit, but we finish it off with Psychic. Grusha then sends out Arcanine. We use a Psychic, doing about half. Arcanine uses Flamethrower, but our good special defense is coming in handy, and we can take it down with Psychic. Grusha then sends out Blastoise, who uses Hydro Pump. We use a Psychic, almost beating it with a critical hit, but it lives on 1 HP and uses Rain Dance, plus a full restore. We use a Psychic, doing less than half damage. Then we use another Psychic, almost beating it, and Blastoise uses Hydro Pump that makes us faint with a critical hit. Ugh. Well, we try again, and Blastoise uses Hydro Pump. We use a Psychic, doing half damage. Blastoise uses Rain Dance and heals with its berry. We had to cut the rest of the Blastoise because the battle was just way too long, but rest assured we do get past him. Grusha sends out Alakazam next. It's not doing much with Psychic, uses Reflect, and now Shadow Ball's doing even less damage. Alakazam uses another Psychic, we use another Shadow Ball for about half damage. Alakazam uses Future Sight, and one last Shadow Ball beats Alakazam. Grusha sends out Rhydon next, we use a Psychic and it lives on about 10 HP, hits us with Scary Face, and then heals using a full restore. Future Sight came and did about 39 damage. We use Psychic, getting so close, and Rhydon uses another Scary Face and then hits us with Earthquake, which unfortunately means we're going to have to try again. But the next time we do, Rhydon dies to a single Psychic. Grusha sends out Exeggutor next. In this battle, he uses Sleep Powder and Giga Drain. We use Iron Tail, doing little damage, but it is lowering Exeggutor's defense. Exeggutor uses Sleep Powder and Light Screen. We use a Shadow Ball, but Exeggutor lives on 1 HP, uses Sleep Powder, but we wake up and finish it off with Shadow Ball, finally beating the champion. My lord, that champion battle was a handful, but if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe and check out Super Blade's other videos like this one, where he compares everyone's favorite Pokemon of each gen to his. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time,